Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am joined today by a returning guest, Evan Dreucci. Evan, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me on again.
It is great having you back on the show. I had you on both before and after your amateur MMA debut fight. You took on a guy who I think was 2-1 or 2-0 at the time, and you beat him in an incredible kind of fight of the year candidate. Before we jump to the April 15th card for 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Burgh 16. And I know you've already been on the show and done this, but now that it's been months, what's a takeaway from that fight, your amateur MMA debut representing Indio Dojo, and then we'll get into the fight that's coming up. But I know you've already talked about this and it's been months, but what stands out to you from that fight?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway, I had a couple actually. One, I need to get my grappling a lot better. I said that last time I was on the podcast. I felt a little uncomfortable because it's a different stance, taking shots and things like that. Um, Another thing is I rewatched the fight a couple times and it's like I'm a little irritated with myself because I had a chance to finish him a couple times, especially that second round. I had him hurt. I had him wobbled twice and had him up on the fence. And then that third round, I knocked him down, and I don't know. I don't know what happened. I think I knew I was winning the fight, so I was kind of trying to play it a little safe, a little bit, and not really expose myself and get in any, harm's way or anything like that. But that put a big chip on my shoulder this training camp. I'm really looking for finish this fight.
Well, I think it's great that in rewatching, it's your first amateur MMA. So the fact that you rewatched the fight and saw some opportunities, I see that from your mindset, like you said, it's frustrating, but I actually think that's just your brain like training and learning. It's not only training physically, it's also training mentally to be able to see opportunities and options there. And obviously, you're training at Indio Dojo. And so what has that been like after your fight? And your opponent was actually 1-0 when you took him on and was known as a striker. So what has it been like to continue to train at India with all the guys there, having had some real in-cage experience?
Yeah, sorry, I got a call. Let me get back on here. What the crap? It put me to small screen.
You're good to go on our end, buddy. We can
All
hear
right,
you.
sorry. As long as you can see me good. What was the experience like now?
Oh yeah, what's it like training in India Dojo now that you've had live experience? Like, how has that changed or influenced or increased your training at the gym?
Oh, it gave me a lot more confidence in myself. I'm able to see a lot more when I'm sparring. Like I said, it helped me find gap. I mean, there's a lot of gaps in my game. I'm a beginner, so obviously, but it helped me focus on certain things I really need to focus on, like defending takedowns up against the cage. That's a big one. I mean, that's like, it's so different than just defending a regular takedown in wrestling. I mean, there's just so many different positions you got to work for and be in good positions. And then I'm still working with Mikey Hewitt on my striking. I'm still doing privates with him. We're still sparring. We're basically doing the same things we did, just little minor adjustments. And the conditioning is just like, I mean, the practices, like I get nervous before my practices, like more than my fight, I think. Like there's sometimes I'm driving, I'm like a 50-minute drive from here, from the gym. So when I'm driving, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like nervous. Like, why am I nervous? You know what I mean? But yeah.
Well, maybe that's the right attitude to have. At the amateur level, your fights are either 6 minutes, like this will be a 3 2-minute rounds for you there. Soon you'll be bumped up to the advanced amateur, which is 9-minute fight. And then eventually, if pro happens, that's 15 minutes. But a training session is double or triple even a pro fight. And that's how training, so for people that watch MMA, there's hundreds of hours that go into the couple minutes that you see in a fight. So pretty exciting. You've talked about the mindset as far as you want to get a finish. You're taking on a guy who's 0-0. He's already been on this show. He says he has a lot of jiu-jitsu experience. Does it play into your mindset at all, your opponent? Because this is kind of like your first time. Your last opponent was 1-0. It's still early to the career. It's kind of hard to know what your opponent brings. But have you done any thinking about your opponent, or is it just all about kind of what your performance is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like people, like they say, like they don't think about their opponents. And it's like it's hard. Like you think about your opponent, you know what I mean? It's about you don't want to like over obsess and like watch all kind of videos and everything like that because they obviously are making improvements as well. That's a big part of it. And I'm not nervous about anything with this fight. I mean, I'm confident everywhere. The grappling, especially because the Indio Dojo is just we're so high level with grappling. Like the wrestlers we bring, and then we got Danilo. He's black belt. He's a great world champion in jiu-jitsu. Like, so I'm not nervous. I think my training and my coaches and my teammates, they're gonna get me ready for the fight.
And so obviously that confidence from your first fight, getting a great win, even though you said you'd like to have finished it, it was still a really incredible win, particularly to have that good of an opponent. And you guys both put on a great show for the 6 minutes. You obviously want to get the finish. The Brawl in the Burgh 16, April 15th at the Hollywood Casino at the Meadows is going to be an absolutely packed house. Got a lot of big time pro fights, big time amateur fights. You're one of the exciting amateurs. I think every fight from beginning to end is going to be exciting. Why should people come out to see you? I know India Dojo is popular. The Cahill brothers, there's a lot of people that make India Dojo exciting. You've got Ken Burrs fighting on your on the card with you, I believe. So kind of what are you saying will make people excited to watch your fight? Because it's going to be a packed house and a stacked card.
Well, I mean, my last fight was, I mean, it was contender for fight of the year, and that's a big thing there. I would say, I mean, that's my first fight. I'd say it's a pretty good accomplishment, but yeah, and I plan on bringing the same intensity to this fight. I mean, like I said, that's a big part of my game is my mentality. I want to be the baddest dude that steps in that cage, and I know I gotta work towards that, and that's the biggest thing is just my mentality, and I truly think I'm going to put on a show and finish this kid.
Well, that right there is enough to sell tickets and get people excited to come see you. You pointed out though, for an amateur debut, there's so much going on for you to not only perform well, but put on a fight of the year contender. 247 just did their first ever award show. I'm sure that was exciting, to get nominated. And I think, from years to come, we're going to see fighters like yourself that get nominated for different categories, knockout of the year, fight of the year, comeback, new, it's all different. I think we're going to see fighters like you and others that over, 2 to 5 years are constantly getting nominated for something. That's why I think it's so exciting. Your gym was nominated. There's all types of ways, I think, to really get excited behind amateur MMA and pro MMA. I mentioned you're an exciting guy to watch. Ken Burrs trains out of the India Dojo gym. He's got a huge matchup at 185. He was a high-level collegiate national qualifying wrestler, and he's going up against a Division I pit wrestler just because it's fun talking, having you on. How do you see that fight going? Your fight's an exciting fight. Ken Burrs versus Lito is obviously an incredibly entertaining fight. Both those guys are 1-0, but both those guys have a lot of wrestling experience. So for you, it's your fight night, but you're also going to be there to support Ken. How do you see that going for him?
I mean, Ken is one of the hardest workers in the room. His wrestling's as good as anybody's. I think he's more well-rounded than James Lito, so I think that's going to play a big part in it. I really think that once he feels Kenneth's power and his striking, his eyes are going to open up, and he's gonna feel the pressure.
And I would think you being that's a great prediction. I didn't know until Ken was on the show recently that he actually competed in sort of full contact combatives in the Army, which ended up being sort of a modified MMA fights for him, and unsurprisingly got some TKOs against other Army guys. But I would think he's a big training partner for you because you're 170, he's 185. He's a little, bigger, but you're about the same size. What's it like you pushing him, and what's it like him pushing you? Because you mentioned wrestling. He's known for wrestling. You guys both are big, strong wrestlers, strikers, and only one weight class apart.
Yeah, the biggest thing he helps me with is the grappling. I mean, I get like, I feel like I have like great technique with my takedowns, and sometimes he just bulls through and just puts me on my butt, and it's like, man, sometimes I drive home too. I'm driving home from practice. I'm like, I think I suck. Like I'm like not good, thinking I suck, and then I come home and take a little time. Then I'm like, nah, we just got killers at this gym. I mean, so many people. There's so many good people at this gym. It's unbelievable. Like it's only a matter of time before I think we pop off.
Well, I think you're a big part of the gym up and coming. You mentioned there's a lot of great fighters coming out of that gym. I think there's an old expression I've seen on gym walls, uh, train hard, fight easy. And in some ways, I think particularly training with a killer like Ken Burrs, it makes sense that you're nervous driving to a practice because you're going to go with him 3, 4, 5 times as long as you would in a fight, maybe even more. You train with him for an hour. That's like 10 fights back to back to back in what an amateur fight would be. So I think that, and you mentioned it, it's not only the level of coaching, but the level of sparring partners you guys have at Indio. And obviously the shop is kind of connected to Indio as well. And there's a lot of wrestlers in both camps. So do you get, I would also think because he's a 185er, it's interesting. You got a couple great 185ers. Jay Manning is a pro fighter. He's going to be fighting for LFA. He's a bit of a longer, leaner. I called him when he was on the show, a bit of a Anderson Silva. Burrs is a little bit shorter, thicker power guy. What's it also like working and training with Jay Manning as far as his length and reach? What's that like as a sparring partner?
It's nice because I kind of get the best of both worlds.
Mhm.
Like with Ken, he's more grappling based, so I really got to focus and be sharp with my grappling there, and he helps me out with that. And then with Jay, his striking is just
Mhm.
it's unbelievable. His reach is great. His combos he puts together, he's so relaxed. He sees everything. Like it's he's really good. And don't get me wrong, they're both well rounded. Like Jay can grapple good too, and Kenneth can strike good too. So, but yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is just I get the best of both worlds there.
Absolutely. And your comments about Jay and Ken are about what they bring to you as far as a training partner goes. Jay was on the show and he gave you and others, he gave everybody at Indio a lot of credit for working on his grappling and jiu-jitsu because he is more of a striker. And now that he's at the pro level, which I'm excited to see what happens for LFA there for him because now as a pro level, I joked that I call it if he wins by jumping or flying knee. I said if he does the Ben Askren, I called it because he's got that frame where he could really do some great striking stuff. So I think that works because what we'll see in a lot of gyms is we'll see guys kind of make each other better around the same weight class. So you're the 170, 185, you got 3 or 4 really good studs there. Obviously, at the lighter weight classes, you got some great studs too, Gavin Teasdale and more. So it is cool to kind of see how everybody in the gym encourages each other and supports each other, gives energy to each other. But you end up training and sparring with a handful of guys. So it's always an honor having you on the show. I remember your calmness and your confidence coming into your amateur debut when you had never been in there before, and it's great to kind of see that increase now that you've been there. You've already performed well, and like you said, you're going out there to impress the crowd. I think for anybody that hasn't bought tickets yet, get tickets from India Dojo. Evan Dreucci himself, or anybody else that's fighting on the card, make sure you're supporting the fighters. It's going to be a great night. So, do you have anything else? I think we've amped it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pumped, so go for it.
So you remember that? Remember for weigh-ins, I wore a nice little button-up shirt, and you're like, man, you're dressed better than me. I got something for you now. I'm coming dressed even better for this next weigh-in. So
Oh, are you? You
yeah,
remember
well,
that? Yeah, well, I'll have to talk to Ryan Middleton to see because I know the fight you're talking about, your debut. We did the weigh-ins. That was the casino weigh-in, right?
yep,
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
it's I kind of look at it as like I mean, it's an amateur fight, but you still want to present yourself as a professional. You know what I mean? So like that's a big reason why I want to, you just dress nice. You dress nice, you look nice, you perform good. I believe in that. So
Well, just because you made the comment, so forgive me. Ryan Middleton always jokes with me, the owner of 247, right here representing. Obviously, going to put on a great show, but he always kids with me that I have a love fascination with GSP. So here's a GSP reference. GSP was one of the first fighters in the UFC that purposely went out of his way to wear the beautiful three-piece suits with the tie. I mean, if you picture a GSP press conference, he looks good. I mean, like model good, like a guy that looks like he's going to a banking convention, you know. And really, he was one of the first, because around the same time, he came a little bit later, but fighting around the same time, Chuck the Iceman Liddell looked exactly opposite, right? Back then, they were kind of projecting this ballroom brawler, you know, the mohawk, real tough looking dude, a guy that you wouldn't mess with, or he would look comfortable on a bike, a motorcycle gang type feel. A lot of the older guys, kind of Tank Abbott and all those guys, sort of had that bar feel. And then GSP and others, I'm not going to give him all the credit, but GSP was one of the first guys that started presenting himself. Rich Days Franklin was one of the other ones too, that was like one of the early UFC guys to say, hey, we want to make this look like professional, because you are professional. So I think it makes perfect sense. And your comment gave me the opportunity to mention GSP, so it's a win-win. Because
Yeah.
if I can make a GSP reference, it makes my day happier. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show. You may not have sponsors yet, so let me throw out there that if you do have sponsors or anybody you want to thank, training partners, you know, you mentioned a bunch, feel free to come up with a list in your mind, and I'll ask you to share it. But for anybody watching this, this is a great opportunity to start supporting a fighter like Evan Dreucci, to get behind, you know, local MMA fighters that end up going big. Sponsorships get a lot of attention. So I'm always pushing sponsors. We have a lot of great local sponsors that go out of the way to sponsor, whether it's 247 directly or a fighter or a gym. So you're at the point, even though you're still very early in your career, where I'm assuming people will soon be excited to kind of get behind you. So what's your thank you list or your shout out list as we wrap up?
So I don't have any sponsors yet, but I do plan on there's some local businesses around where I live, and I know the owners, so I'm gonna go pay them a visit and see if they'll help me out. And then I just, I want to thank the gym, all my training partners, my coaches, my family, always for backing me up, supporting me, and then my community and my friends. That's a big part of why I fight. I like to I want to. It's kind of silly to say, but like I want to be like a well-known person. I want to be that person that's like a household name. I want people be sitting around the dinner table talking about my fight. Saying, "Did you see Evan Dreucci's fight over the weekend? He was awesome." Like, that's a big part of why I do it. So yeah, like I said, just I thank all my supporters.
Sure. Well, I think that's a perfect mindset that you have. It's kind of cool that your first fight already had people talking, like you said, the 247 award show. So it makes sense that ties perfectly into one of your motivations is to kind of not only be known, but be appreciated. People to say, man, you're a good fighter, you're an entertaining fighter. So April 15th will be your next opportunity to even build more fans. I think that's something that Ryan Middleton and I have talked about behind the scenes, that one of the exciting parts about 247 is we know that sometimes fans come to watch a particular fighter. So maybe they're not even there to see you, but then you entertain, or, your teammate or whoever catches their eye, and then they become a fan of the next fighter. Or what we've also talked about is then they just become a fan of 247. I've talked to a lot of people in the fans, and they in the stands, they come for one fighter, but then the next fight, they're like, man, I'm just coming to see 247. And 247 is starting to put on cards, multiple pros, high-level amateurs, including yourself, where I think that's what's exciting. So you're the type of fighter that even if somebody comes to not necessarily see you, they're going to end up leaving a fan of Evan Dreucci, and that's what's exciting. So,
yep. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on again.
Hey, you are very welcome. You take care. Best skills to you in your upcoming fight. 247fighting.com and 247 Brawl in the Burgh 16, April 15th at the Meadows Casino and Racetrack. It's going to be exciting and incredible. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yep. Thank you.
You got it.